holding in a shahakol, Siyat Deshmaya. We are learning how to learn Lekutei Moharan. This is part 3. And we're learning the Chai Klalim, the 18 principles about how to learn the Torah of Rebbe Nachman ben Fega, V'simcha, Zchus Yigan Aleinu. His merit should be a protection upon us, B'siyat Deshmaya. And the Iker, just to put everything in context, is the first principle, which is called Minei Ubei. Minei Ubei means everything's inside the Torah. Minei Ubei. From within the Torah itself, you can find all the secrets. Right, what's the story? They tell it in different ways. Of the Chassid. That he had a dream that there was a treasure under a bridge in Vienna. And he gets there, and then there's a guard standing there. So he doesn't want to, make himself look too sus. And mulls around a little bit and finally says, what are you doing here, Jew? He says, I don't know, it's some crazy thing, but I had a dream that there was a treasure under this bridge here in Vienna. Come on, you crazy Jew. I also had a dream that there was a treasure under this person's house, Itzikal. And he's thinking, oh my goodness, I'm Itzikal. And they're in his backyard on the oven over there. Well, you think just because I have a dream about such a thing, I go and I travel to go find the treasure? And Itzikal's like, shkoyach. And he goes back home and he digs up and he finds there was a treasure in his own backyard. Minei Ubei. In the Torah, you'll find all the treasures. In the Torah mamish. So we're holding by principle 7. All bechinas, aspects, concepts encompass one another. Like the previous principle, this is not a regular style that we go in with the English text, but because the Breslov Research Institute and Torah's Chaim and Latal B'Torah Soy Gefal, they put this in here in such an easy to understand language. So this is setting us up as we're going back into Tinyana Beis, Torah Beis Tinyana, that we're going to have tremendous yesodus in how to learn Rebbe Nachman. Like the previous principle, this is also a principle that governs the entire Bria. Each bechina is like part of a greater whole. However, even though there are only parts of the greater whole, each part contains all the other parts within it. The idea of a bechina, an aspect, a concept. When Rebbe Nachman says, so halacha is the bechin of shashuelim haba, which is the bechin of that taluchas adam going through the body, which is the bechin of this and the bechin of that, and everything is like building one on the next. Anybody ever seen Bond? 007?
Goldfinger.
That's right. So, I don't know about you, but has there been a recent one?
I don't know. A few years ago.
A few years ago. So, I didn't see it, but you'll never guess. I'm going to use prophecy to tell you what it says. Okay? So, what did I say? So, Bond starts. He's probably hanging out in some tropical place somewhere, and there's a scene where he gets this call, and he's like, the world is going to be destroyed. He's like, I'm on my way. And then there's usually some girl that is like, get out of here. I have to go save the world. And then he's, yeah. And then he goes to that place. And the bad guy's there. Now, who is the bad guy? Either he was eye patch man. He's cocaine dealer in, Colombia.
Follically challenged.
Yeah. Some, ice palace Russian situation. It was. Now, he's like, okay, you got Sophie, everything, and then he's about to save the day, and then it looks like he's not, and then he does, and then the bad guy, the last scene, is he's buried under the rubble, and Bond is another job well done, and the girl comes back. And then the last scene is usually the guy puts his hand coming out of the ground. You're like, I thought he was gone. End of movie.
It was better than the real one.
So how did you know? How did you know that? Are you a prophet? The answer is no. It's the bechina means that's just bechina's James Bond movie. They just switch a few things, but it's all the same thing. It's the bechina of this one. Even bechina's bad guy, either bechina's bad guy is eye patch man or ice palace man or crack cocaine dealer man. It's all the same bechina. Just bechina's bad guy. They just move it around a little bit. Okay? Now, Rebbe Nachman talking a lot about bechinas. In this principle, though, what we're talking about is appreciate when we say that something is the bechin of this, is the bechin of that, is the bechin of that. What we're talking about is that we're going to see that every single one of the things that we mention have all the other bechinas in it. The bad guy has the eye patch man and the ice man, and it's all within eye patch man, or all within ice palace, crazy take over the world man. So let's go through this. This Yesod is found in the Kisvei Arizal and is applicable to all aspects of Kabbalah and Pnimius HaTorah. He's going to go back to the OG. Just like in the Kabbalistic structure, the 10 spheres, which is the beginning of this whole story, make up a complete structure, and each sphera is just a part of the complete picture. Nonetheless, each sphere has within it all the other spheres as well. Each sphere has its own 10 spheres. Where's one of the places that we all encounter this? Spheres ha'omer. Oh, chesed. Oh, then what do we mean? Chesed, shibah chesed. Because inside of chesed has chesed. And then, there's gevura shibah chesed. What do you mean? I thought gevura and chesed are like opposite. That's what you thought. But really, inside of chesed, there's gevura. There's the gevura of the chesed. And let's even flip it. Inside of gevura has chesed.
What's the difference between those two?
The gevura of chesed and the chesed of gevura.
Yeah, not the same thing.
Not the same thing. There's the gevura that's inside of the chesed, and the chesed is inside of the gevura.
Wow, it's not pashut.
Which mainly means that each bechina, meaning chesed is a bechina, gevura is a bechina, but they encapsulate each other in it. But you have to know, as we're going to see in a second, that chesed is chesed and gevura is gevura. Just because they have all the other bechinas inside them, don't think they are them. You guys chap that? Just because inside of, eye patch man and is crazy crack cocaine, guy, and ice palace guy, don't think he is ice palace guy.
Scooby-Doo with the mask.
That's right, he's not. But he's within him. It's all bechina. You chap? Don't think he is him.
So bechina is just in him, like an element.
An element, a concept, an aspect. Don't think, though, that they are each other. They're within. They're contained within. The example he's giving here, the spheres. Now he's going to explain this a little bit more. We have already written, Rav Nosson says, we've already written many times that each bechina is made up of all the other bechinas, as this is the foundation and introduction to all Sifrei Kabbalah. That even though we say that such and such is an aspect of chesed, and such is an aspect of gevura, nonetheless, chesed contains within itself all the other spheres as well, and all the holy names and other aspects contained within Sifrei Kabbalah, as is known. As is known means those who learn Kabbalah, of course we know this. On the other hand, Rav Nosson writes elsewhere that while on the one hand each bechina contains all the other bechinas, on the other hand, we must always recognize the main bechina of each concept. So, for example, if Torah Shebechsav and Torah Shebal Peh both contain aspects of the other within them, yes, there's a Torah Shebechsav in Torah Shebal Peh, and a Torah Shebal Peh in Torah Shebechsav. We must not confuse them and say that Torah Shebal Peh is Torah Shebechsav. They're not. Rather, to remember that there's an aspect of Torah Shebechsav within Torah Shebal Peh. So, L'maisa, we should always be looking for deeper ways we can understand each paragraph or each concept in Lekutei Moharan through seeing how it relates to all the other concepts within the same Torah. Through this, each individual concept will be more deeply and thoroughly understood with Siyata D'Shmaya. So you see how he's encapsulated each inyan. You start to see how they're included within the other inyan. This goes all the way back to Minei Obei also. that Mineu Bey, by learning and seeing that Rebbe Nachman structured each Torah in the way that he did, you could start seeing how each thing fits into it. It's not, they're different in Yonim. They're different things, but they contain each other within each other. Okay, so you start thinking this way. You can almost pause and take a step back and say, so where do I see? If halacha is an inyan of shashui olam haba, that the pleasures of the world to come, that halacha is a bechina of shashui olam haba, the pleasures of the world to come. So halacha isn't the world to come. It's a bechina of the world to come. So within halacha is the world to come. Within the world to come is halacha. Halacha is also Todah. Todah is a bechina of the world to come. So within halacha within Todah, saying thank you, is the world to come. Within the world to come is saying thank you. So I see it like this. In the world to come, there is an element of saying thank you. It's not the same thing. But within the world to come is saying thank you, which means within saying thank you, I'm already touching the world to come in this world. And I start seeing how they include each other in them. They're different. But I could start thinking about this. You sit down a little bit, you look out into the hillside. Like Rebbe Nachman is a meditative experience. It's here to be meditative and to think and to be misboinen. Okay, principle 8 is very deep. The relationship of oiris and kalim. Oh yeah, lights and vessels. That sounds cool. Similar to the previous principle, this class speaks to the relationship between different sections or bechinas of each Torah. The main idea is we don't delineate the nature of a bechina or its relationship to another with absolute and final definition. What's the general meaning of oiris and kalim? Oiris and kalim generally refer to the or is the thing that is giving, and the kli is the thing that's receiving. So what's the oiris and kalim of this cup of coffee? What do I want?
Coffee.
I'm not interested in cup, or eating it, for that matter, or maybe even looking at it, for that matter. I'm interested in the good that's inside, right? But I wouldn't have that if I didn't have a cup. That would just be a messy, potentially dangerous, hot, burn situation.
A puddle.
Yeah, a puddle. Or a burn. If I'm trying to coffee. So I need a kli to receive the or, called the coffee. Now, maybe in some way, if my kids are making a project, then they take these cups and that becomes, they build something out of it. That becomes now the thing. I want this thing. So it started as the kli for the coffee, but now this thing could become something else relative to something else. Or maybe I even see the coffee as just a kli that I want the or that it's bringing me, this feeling. So it's just a vessel itself that was helping to aid a feeling. So you start to see that one thing could be one thing regarding another thing, but that thing is not stuck. This is not stuck as a kli. This could turn into an or. He's going to give a very good example of this in a second. They may not, okay. Right, fine. Within the ladder of the levels of each Torah, there's an aspect of mashpia. That's called the or. That's the thing that is giving, that I want. And then the makabel, the receiver, or light, the kli vessel, which speaks to the relationship between the different rungs of the ladder. As a mashal, we speak of and define certain members of a family as a grandfather, a father, son, and grandson. Okay, so how many people do we have here? We have 4 people. We have the grandfather, we have the father, and then we speak of them as a son and a grandson. Now, these are not absolute definitions of the people in question. Rather, just representations of the relationships between them. Really, the father is also a son to the grandfather. Even though he's called the father. Yeah, but he's also a son relative to his father. So I'm a tati, but I'm also a son. So when I talk about my son, so he's a son to me. So I'm the tati. But I'm a tati, but I'm a son to the bechina higher than me. So I'm an or to my son, and my son is a kli to me. But I'm a kli to my father, and my father's an or to me. But my father's also a kli to the or above him. So when you see that relationship, don't get stuck in something because you can move the bechinas around. This should be pretty self-explanatory. Any questions on this? Very cool idea is that your mind becomes able to see things in different bechinas. In other words, the descriptor changes based on the relationship that is being focused on. So meaning if I set up a system, at one point in the Torah, one part could be the mashpia to the other concept, but in another part of the Torah, that mashpia could be a kli to something above it. So you always want to be able to see the bechinas moving and what's at play here. Each Torah in Lekutei Moharan works this way as well. Here he gives a good example. This is so beautiful. They give such good examples. In Torah Chaf Beis 22, the Rebbe speaks about the concept of etzem, a bone, and basar, fleishiks. So etzem is the bone, and the fleishiks are the fleishiks. Etzem refers to the neshama, which is the inner part, and basar refers to the body. Right? However, on a higher level, etzem refers to the tzaddik, the inner point, and basar refers to the people that he's the head of. However, as an example of this rule, we see that even though one of the people has an etzem or neshama, they're still considered to be underneath the basar or body of the tzaddik as receivers. Meaning, I could have an etzem, I have a neshama, but I'm just a basar klapi, the tzaddik. That's me. So I'm going back to wanting to be a kli to the tzaddik, even though I have myself the or to my body. You hear that? So at the same time, I'm a kli, but I'm a kli to the tzaddik, but I'm also an or of my neshama to my body. So far, so good? That's like a very beautiful way that you see them happening in the same way. So depending on the relationship of the overall ladder, the etzem, which is the essence of a mashpia, could be a makabel in relation to a higher bechina. I mean, even though I might be sharing Torah right now, but to my Rebbe, I'm nothing. I'm just fleishiks. You know what I'm saying? Just my Rebbe made a chasana last night. I'm just like, I'm dancing with my Rebbe. I'm like, this is the best ever. This is the best. I'm just receiving that or. Oh yeah, Taka? Oh, just incarnated. So I'm just the kli to that or. I'm receiving that or from a higher bechina. L'maisa, we should endeavor to maintain an understanding of the flow of each Torah, knowing the roadmap very well and understanding which bechina leads to another bechina. It's a good idea to create a flow chart to concretize the flow of the mashpia makabel dynamic and to realize that bechinas are defined as different essences when viewed in relation to various other bechinas. It's so beautiful. Because now all of a sudden it's like the Torah is moving. It's alive. Right? It's alive. It's alive, Daniel. Principle 9. Yechidei Adoros. Yechidei Adoros means the tzaddikim of each generation and Mashiach. Let's go. Mashiach now. When the Rebbe mentions the great tzaddik and his rectifications, or the greatness of his Torah, he's referring to the tzaddikim that are unique in each generation. Meaning, Rebbe Nachman talks a lot about the tzaddik, and this that the tzaddik can help give humanity and rectify and help us with. And essentially what he's talking about is a continuation of the neshama of Moshe Rabbeinu. That Moshe Rabbeinu's neshama is coming in every generation, into the special tzaddikim of that generation.
Is the same thing about David HaMelech?
Yes. David HaMelech.
Also his neshama? Or like?
Moshe Rabbeinu was the tzaddik.
Right.
The tzaddik. He was what's called Tov. This week's parsha. Varaki Tov. And he is born, and we mentioned this before, that he was totally good. we said that Moshe and Bilam were two halves of the same neshama.
Right.
The Moshe Rabbeinu was completely Tov, and Bilam was completely Ra. Bilam was Lavan. And that split, that Moshe is absolute Tov, is the one that could help us, because after Odin ate from the Eitz Adas Toivara, we were in trouble. Because now we became an admixture of Tov and Ra. And therefore you wake up in the morning and you're confused. Not exactly sure what to do with your life. You're not exactly sure if this restaurant is kosher. Even though I think I see a picture of the Lubavitcher Rebbe on the wall. So, and the guy sitting behind the counter is like, look, he's the mashkiach. Or the Baba Sali's there. It's like, don't you see? It's obviously kosher. You're like, making a good point. You're like, would the Lubavitcher Rebbe allow something to happen here that's not right? So, okay, I don't know. You're just making a good point. The Rebbe is definitely aware of what's going on, but like, can I trust? Is that enough? I don't know. So I have this toivara inside of me. Eitz das toivara means I'm connected in a strong way to both. It's hard to discern. Therefore, connecting to the tzaddik that's kuloi toiv gets me out of my confusion. He illuminates pure toiv for me. That's Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu had completely split off from that. That's why he was toiv. So when Rebbe Nachman is speaking about this, he's speaking about tzaddikim that are completely tov. And therefore they could help us. Each of these great tzaddikim reveal a new Torah in the world, new chidushim into the Torah that was given over at Mount Sinai. Meaning they're expanding this Torah of Moshe Rabbeinu. And we see this in the Gemara, Shaper Ka'amris Moshe, where the Amoraim are talking to each other and calling each other Moshe. And my name is not Moshe, it's Rav, it's Rabba, it's Abaya, it's Rava. It's not Moshe. What they were saying is, you have that spark of Moshe inside of you. However, the completion and perfection of these ideas within each Torah and the rectifications associated with each Torah referring to Mashiach Tzidkenu and the great rectification that awaits in the future, Mashiach will be the ultimate Tov and rectify everything. So it's all getting ready for Mashiach. It's possible to say that this point within the Bir Lekutim, who's giving us the Chai Klolim, these 18 principles, is teaching that the Torah of Rebbe Nachman reveals a new Chiddush, even on those ideas that have been brought by previous tzaddikim, that Rebbe Nachman was this tzaddik. Therefore, within the deeper understandings of the Torah that will come through the Chai Klolim, we'll be able to see how the Rebbe's Torah is different and a Chiddush compared to the Torahs of the previous tzaddikim. You see, there's something unique. And therefore, that's why when you're learning the Lekutei Moharan, you're learning with the Chai Klolim, you're learning it in a proper way, you're literally connecting to pure Toiv. That's why so many people are getting lit up through the breast of Torah. It's beyond what's spreading through the world. That Rebbe Nachman is being poil ice.
I think it's spreading more now than ever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mamish. Now it's spreading to the four corners of the globe.
It's crazy.
And it's amazing that Rebbe Nachman said these things hundreds of years ago, when if you looked at the situation, you would not necessarily have seen, like, in his biggest Rosh Hashanah, there were 600 people there. Many big tzaddikim, but there were many tzaddikim. But now that he said all these things and they're all coming true, this is nifla b'yoseh, nifla mamish. And the people that are really in low places in their life are getting lifted up by the Torahs of Rabbeinu. L'maisa, we should remember that the true tzaddikim bring new chidushim into the world with their Torah. We should therefore be sure to work towards a deeper understanding of the Rebbe's Torah and to connect to the unique and new way in which it's being revealed.
And what came true so far?
Pardon?
What came true so far?
That he said that my Rosh Hashanah is going to be big. Now, for someone to say that 100 years ago, and there's a few hundred people there, that's one thing. But now that there's 50,000 people going for Rosh Hashanah,
Wow.
how could you know that? And this Torah is going to spread more and more and more.
Yeah, it's mamish going
It's wildfire.
on everywhere.
It's a fire of love and passion
What's the main point of it?
to bring Mashiach.
I'm Lekutei.
To bring Mashiach. The main point is all these 18 klalim, and to get connected to absolute tov. Mamish tov. The tov of Moshe Rabbeinu. Yeah.
I always hear of things that rabbis say and they come true. And it's like, wow, that's like prophecy, it has to be, it's crazy. I've heard of things that rabbis have said, I've never really seen it or heard of it, and they just didn't come true, and they just, I don't know, just...
We're talking about real people here. This is the real thing. This is not like, Tweedledbug 472's, crystal ball, who's just a charlatan trying to take your money. I predict that you will see people today that are wearing shoes. Oh my goodness, it came true. I can't believe it, Tweedledbug. How did you know? How did you know? So we're not talking about those types of predictions. We're talking about next level predictions. And for all of Tweedledbug's, amazing predictions, the 5,000 of them that didn't come true, the tzaddikim know things. When you're connected to that level of tzaddik, you're getting plugged into toiv, to pure toiv, to the toiv of Moshe Rabbeinu. And this week, bedafkets beyeser seis of yeser oiz, Moshe Rabbeinu's soul is coming into the world. We should therefore be sure to work towards a deeper understanding of the Rebbe's Torah. We should not assume the Rebbe's words and ideas are those of the other tzaddikim. Rather, we should work towards understanding and revealing them in their originality and uniqueness. And that Rebbe Nachman was bringing this unbelievable light into the world that had not been seen previously. Principle 10. The deviation from the routine method of clothing the Torah in a Maimer, Chazal, or Posuk. Okay. If you open Lekutei Moharan, you'll see that most Torahs in Lekutei Moharan begin with a Posuk, a Maimer Chazal, or a story from the Gemara, which acts as like a title for that Torah.
I thought we don't judge based on someone's dresses.
This is like a title. It's a title of the Torah.
What's the title?
Well, each Torah, he says, many of them will have a certain title. If you write a book, you usually have a title of the book. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's the title of the book. You don't just start writing. You summarize the book with a title.
If you want to learn this, you have to have a title, a dress code.
Let's see. So usually this pasuk of Maimer will not be explained right away. For example, Torah Aleph begins with the pasuk Ashrei Smimei Darech. Praiseworthy are those that go in a pure way. A pasuk from King David, which is interesting. That's Torah Aleph and all of Lekutei Moharan, and he only explains the pasuk at the end of the Torah. Meaning he mentions the pasuk, and then at the end of the Torah he explains it. The explanation of the pasuk does not occur until the end of the Torah, after all the akdamas and bechinas of the Torah have been revealed. So Rebbe Nachman gives like this title, spends the whole Torah not talking about the title, seemingly, and then at the end says, based on everything that we just said, now you can understand the pasuk. He comes back to it at the end. That's a very common thing. However, sometimes the Rebbe will deviate from this method and explain the meaning of the pasuk right away in one of the first one or two sections of the Torah. This is a signal that there's a specific reason why the pasuk is explained in the beginning, which is different. And if we look deeply, we'll be able to see the deeper message through Minei Ubei of the Torah itself. There are many other ramifications associated with this principle, but their explanation would require much more explanation. And this brief introduction to the Klalim is not the place. Meaning, it's not a simple thing when Rebbe Nachman just deviates from that normal structure. If he says a pasuk, an introduction, a Maimer Chazal, a story, and then only later at the end comes to explain it. If he explains it right away, you're like, okay. He explained it right away. So you think to yourself, okay. What we're learning here in the 10th principle is there's a very significant reason for that. And by thinking and learning through the Torah, you could start to think through why that is. Okay? Everybody have that principle? Lamaisa. whenever we see that Rebbe Nachman deviates from the usual practice of stating a pasuk or mimer at the beginning of the Torah and then explaining it at the end, we should make a note of it right away and assume that there's a reason for the change. Then we could use all the chai klalim to try to understand the message behind the change in methodology. See, without these chai klalim, you would never, maybe you would have come to this, but not necessarily. Principle 11. Mashal u'malitza. A mashal is a mashal, a proverb, an analogy. U'malitza, a figure. The unity of drush, deeper meaning, and pshat within the Torah. The pasuk in the beginning of Mishlei says, to understand a proverb and a figure, a melitz, the words of the wise and their riddles. Rashi explained that the pasuk is referring to the fact that sometimes a pasuk will use a certain idea as a mashal, actually referring to something else completely different, and that the real intent is aims toward the nimshal. Meaning, you'll see a simple pasuk, but the pasuk was hinting to something else. In Mishlei, look what he says. Shlomo HaMelech speaks about staying away from an isha zara, a foreign woman. But the panemius of the idea, who is this foreign woman that he's really talking about? Staying away from the evil behaviors of Mitzrayim, of Egypt. Pardon?
Like Potiphar type of
The evil, it means the overall evil behavior that was going on in Mitzrayim. So even though the simple meaning is stay away from a bad, evil woman. If you get seduced by a bad, evil woman, it won't be a good idea for you. Be careful. You know what I'm saying? Like, if somebody comes over at a casino in Vegas, I'm not saying that they're all not good women there. It's probably not a good starting point to have somebody come over to you and she offers you, a relationship. Probably stay away from it. So that's the simple meaning. King Solomon is saying, be careful, stay away. But Rashi says King Solomon was talking about something more overarching, which was stay away from the overall evil behaviors, which are being compared to a seductive evil woman. Yeah? So Rashi's explaining that we need to take both meanings to heart. Not only follow the nimshal, but also the mashal. We need to stay away from forbidden relationships and from the evils of Mitzrayim.
How do you help yourself from staring at a woman? I don't get it. I'm being serious.
Bezrat Hashem, you're going to get married, and then you won't have to stop yourself. You'll be encouraged to stare at your wife. You'll get married, and then you'll be encouraged to spend a very good amount of time looking at your wife. You will not be discouraged, you'll be encouraged.
Amen.
Similarly, it's the derech of Rabbi Nachman to bring a pasuk or mimer and then to expound it to a deeper meaning. Okay, so this is important. This principle teaches that the simple meaning of the pasuk and the deeper meaning of the pasuk are like a mashal and a melitz. And both of them go together hand in hand. Not only do the two meanings not contradict one another, but they help define and contemplate the other meaning as well. Meaning, when King Solomon is telling us to be careful of an evil woman, the deeper meaning is that was talking about the evils of Mitzrayim, is that you should start thinking, right, back and forth, within Minei Bay, that there has to be something in Iris and Kalim, and you start putting this all together. Oh, and bechinas, that an evil woman is a bechina of the evils of Mitzrayim, which means the evils of Mitzrayim have a certain evil female quality. And to think that through. Why wasn't it an evil man? There's evil men out there. So you start thinking through, and they're both true at the same time. Why will the evils of Mitzrayim not compare to a God forbid evil axe-murdering man? Okay, so you start thinking through what are the connections. But you have to see them both at the same time. Okay?
So what's that? What's the shot?
Just think it through. In the same way that we need to hold on to both the simple meaning and the deeper meaning, we also need to attach ourselves to both meanings in the realm of action as well. Many times, Many times the attainment of the lofty levels and understanding within a Torah depend on the fulfillment of the simple meaning of the lesson in a practical way. What would be a simple, practical way? Well, I'm not in Mitzrayim right now, but be aware of the Isha Zar, the foreign woman, the not good, bad woman. Maybe there's practical steps that I need to take to not go into certain casinos in certain places where there might be foreign women. Or maybe, as the question that's being asked by Daniel, I have to be careful of certain places where I might be tempted to look at foreign things. Maybe that's a very practical thing to think through. And that will help me understand what it really means, the temptations of Egypt.
Like someone told me, if you have to go somewhere and you either go from Yafo Street or you go from this other street, they choose the other street so that you don't crossed by women. Like, is that a thing? Or you just control yourself?
What do you think?
I don't know. Maybe the Yafo Street's faster. I like the faster.
You have to put it in. What if on said street, one street is just a very nice, sanua place, and the other street is filled with brothels, but it's quicker.
Take the brothels.
The red light district, or like the park, and you're with your son.
Ooh.
And we got to get to this destination. It's quicker to go through the red light district.
Well, that's crazy. Red light district.
You don't want to stay away from Oradon. You don't want to be around that.
Yeah, but
Even if it takes longer.
Rehov Edom is Gehinnom.
Okay, so then it looks like you're answering the question as you're thinking it through. In order to understand how the Pshat and Panemius work together and to build a complete and complete one another, we have to find the pathway between the lines of the deeper connections of the Torah, the fundamental ideas that are revealed within the Torah, and through them, two interpretations will be united. So you start thinking through the simple meaning and the deeper meaning. You spend time with this. Rebbe Nachman is a meditative experience. Lamaisa, using the principle of Minei Obey, as well as the other klalim, we should work to identify the pshat and panemius, what the Rebbe is saying, and make a note of the two levels of understanding. Once we have achieved a deeper understanding of the Torah, and even when we see a deeper type of avodah that comes out from this new understanding, don't abandon the simple meaning of the lesson, especially in the realm of practical avodas. Don't think, well, this deeper meaning was talking about Egypt and Mitzrayim and like the evil behaviors of Mitzrayim and like, whoa, that's deep. But like red light district, like I don't even think about that. Like I'm in the deeper meaning of what King Solomon was talking about. No, don't abandon the simple meaning of being careful of foreign, not good female influences. That's the simple avodah.
Is this, when you say it's like female or it's like the foreign woman, is there some kind of like feminine influence that like it's about receiving for myself only, like some kind of selfish influence?
Let's say, you should think this through.
I think it's about seduction.
I think it's very much connected to seduction. That the seductive nature, and that the seductive nature is trying to take something from you. Maybe trap something from you. Yeah.
You said like the whole Lekutei Moharan, like a meditative thing, and it's basically, I think, this is how I think of it, that every time it says one of these, it wants you to think.
It wants you to think. It wants you to think. That's why you can learn Lekutei Moharan, be'iyin mamish. That's what we're going to be doing. We're going be'iyin. We're thinking this through. Then you start walking around like a few tefachim above the ground. You start feeling like you're floating, like Rebbe Nachman is taking you, thinking things through. And that's stam sitting at a bus stop playing Candy Crush. You're like thinking. You're thinking about all these bechinas. You're thinking about the chai klalim. So lamaisa, using the principle of minei ubei, as well as the other klalim, we should work to identify the pshat and the panemius of what the Rebbe is saying. Once we have achieved a deeper understanding of the Torah, and even when we see a deeper type of avodah that comes out from this new understanding, we must not abandon the simple meaning of the lesson, especially in the realm of practical avodas. Similar to principle 4, we should be sure to fulfill the eitzes and avodas in a practical way as we learn the Torah, and not forget to hold strong to the simple avodas that go along with the lofty ones. It's an important klal. Amen. Don't abandon the simple avodas, because you start learning Lekutei Moharan, it's like very deep. But there's also practical things that he's telling you. Principle 12, living with opposites. When learning Lekutei Moharan, we will inevitably encounter what appears to be opposite pathways or movements in our limited human intellect. However, in the divine intellect of the Creator, as is revealed by the great tzaddikim, there's no contradiction between the two. Like the famous question of free will versus divine foreknowledge. More than this, there are other places where it appears as if there's a contradiction within the hanhagas of the Creator Himself. For example, in Torah Chaf Beis, we see that Hashem commands us not to stumble in our Torah observance and not to sin, God forbid. And if we do sin, we'll be punished. On the other hand, Hashem demands that we elevate ourselves from level to level, and the Rebbe tells us that we cannot elevate to a new level without first stumbling and falling from our current level. Wait a second. I'm not supposed to stumble. But you should know that the way that you actually grow is when you stumble. But wait a second, I'm not supposed to stumble. So our limited human mind can't always understand these things. But when Hashem is teaching us that these two things exist simultaneously, we start developing a deep sensitivity of that these two things exist together. And many tzaddikim spoke about these things. Hanhagas ha-yichud, hanhagas ha-mishpat, bechira yediyah.
What's hanhagas again?
The ways. Yosef.
Is it saying that we should never intentionally stumble? Stumbling is always inevitable, so it's just going to happen, and we just have to always have the direction facing forward, and stumbling might, in some cases, propel us even more forward.
I think that's one of the ways, but we can't think that I'll be able to fully understand this. Because then it's like, oh yeah, I got this. And then all of a sudden something happens, it's like, but wait a second. So we live with this, and you develop sensitivities to this. Is that yes, I'm not supposed to stumble. But it looks like what you're saying is that yes, sometimes there's a certain inevitableness that I'll stumble. And then through that, great growth will happen. Great growth will happen.
Do tzaddikim stumble?
It says Sheva Yipol Tzaddik. The Tzaddik falls 7 times. V'kam, and then he gets up. You're saying, Makeh? We're not allowed to stumble. In order to elevate, we must stumble. It seems like a contradiction to our frail intellect. But in the divine intellect, there's no stira. Our task is to go forward with emunah, that this pathway to growth and elevation is the divine will of Hashem. Through this derech of approaching the pathway with emunah, we'll continue to elevate to higher level and be encompassed more within the das haboire, that I'm going with the godly awareness of how the world runs.
How does the world run?
Through these two things. That God is saying, don't stumble, but He's saying that you'll grow through your stumbling. Where we're able to begin to see on some level that there's really no contradiction. This principle is part of a larger foundation of emunah, that when we see difficulties and contradictions, and we move forward with emunah, it's only when we look deeper into this very contradiction that we'll develop a deeper understanding of the flow of the entire Torah from that same stira itself. So l'maisa, practically, we should not be turned off when we encounter things that seem to be a contradiction or a stira in the Torah of Rebbe Nachman. Rather, we should remind ourselves that it's simple human intellect that lacks the perceptive to see the truth. We should continue on in the lesson with emunah and put our efforts into understanding the components of the contradiction, and that Hashem will reveal the deeper truth within the words of the tzaddik. Like even this particular one of Hashem doesn't want us to stumble, but you grow through stumbling. I think even at some level, like Yosef is saying, we can almost sensitize that we see it. It's not a contradiction. I'm not supposed to stumble, but I can understand that through my stumbling, I've seen great, great growth that's happened.
So why do you get punished?
I'm not allowed to stumble. But I see that through tshuva from love, I turn the things that I did into mitzvahs. I can't do that. That's Shabbatai Tzviyan, Yamach Shema. I can't go into this trying to stumble. I have to live in a world where I'm not stumbling. But I realize that there's great secrets that when I have stumbled, it has brought me to great heights afterwards through that very stumble. And I start living, sensitizing to this, and as the years go on, I see that there's no real contradiction. It's a way of going through the Torahs with a certain sensitivity, and going through life with a certain sensitivity. Principle 13. Emuna b'yediyah ruchanis. Faith. Emuna really means concrete belief in spiritual conceptual knowledge. Now look at this. He says most of this principle has remained hidden, and it was the intent of the author that it should not be published. This klal speaks to the simultaneous and contradictory nature of the idea that all of this world, including space and time, is illusionary and not real. While at the same time, the Torah and its precepts require us to believe that our existence is real and true. Meaning, only God exists. In other words, God is one and infinite. So where is there space for finite existence? Where is the finite?
Us.
Within the infinite.
Within, so you've limited the infinite?
No, us, because we are part of Hashem. We are Hashem.
But
We could be like
We
Hashem.
are Hashem.
No, we could be like Hashem.
Happy curses!
Wait, why can't there be finite in?
I learned yesterday one of these essential classes that we could be like Hashem.
You could be like Hashem, okay. But I'm just asking fundamentally, God's infinite nature, where does infinite allow any space for finite?
Within it.
Within it?
100%.
You made space.
Then it's no longer infinite.
Yeah.
You put a point, you pointed to something, that's not infinite.
How is it not infinite just because it's finite inside?
The finite is not limited by anything. You can't point to anything. The infinite is the everythingness.
Right. Within infinite, surely finite.
The everythingness means I can't put a finger on something because I limited it.
No, it's like
We're outside the infinite, so you limited the infinite that way.
It's like the rays of the sun.
Okay, fine. But even the rays of the sun, that ray, I'm pointing to that ray.
Okay.
Sing soon, baby.
Okay, fine. So these is okay. You're saying Kabbalah. Fine. So this klal, though, they wanted to keep it hidden because it's very, very deep. Due to the fact that this concept is extremely difficult for most of us to wrap our heads around and is often not printed and does not get as much of an explanation as the others.
Why can't we understand it? What's so crazy about it?
Because how do we understand with our finite mind the infinite? And that where's the space for the finite in the infinite? Okay, so the answer is Kabbalah. The answer is Kabbalah. So Lamaisa, or miracle. It's the miracle of creation. And there were people that spoke about, maybe we're not even here. So one of the ways that the holy books answer that, they say to Bereshis bara. Hashem created. That's their raya. Bara. We are here. It's not an illusion. We are here. Bara. Bereshis bara. We are here. But at the same time, if the infinite is all existence, so what are we really? And this is real Kabbalah. So Lamaisa, he says, similar to the previous klal, we can fulfill this principle to some extent by moving forward with emunah when faced with ideas that transcend our ability to understand, and be open to the idea that there are levels of understanding that are beyond us. There's certain levels of understanding that are beyond us. I mean, intellectually figuring it all out. Yeah, I totally chap. It's called the chalal hapanui. Yeah, Hashem made like an empty space. But is it really empty? Because like, where would finite existence exist? Oh yeah, so Hashem made this halal. He made a halal hapanui. Made an empty space. Oh yeah, I totally chap that. Yeah, I saw a description in like an English translation of Eitz Chaim. I chop it, and then there's like a little ray, there's like a circle with a line and a dot. Oh yeah, pashut, and that kav that comes in, I'm like, oh yeah, pashut, like yeah, I chop that. The halal hapanui, is it really panui? It's panui? It's panui? I think it said that it's panui. It's panui? It's panui mamish? It's empty? No, it's not empty. It's filled. It's filled. This is not a halal. It's not a halal. It's filled. So what is that? It's a halal, but it's filled? I don't chap. No, I chap. I get that.
Is that where halal comes from? Because it's emptiness? Halal.
Halal. No, it says that halal, like a chiloni, sadly. A chiloni, sometimes ani chiloni. What he wants to say is I'm empty. But he's not. Because the halal can't be empty. Halal's not empty. Because you can't limit the infinite. Halal's not empty. The halal is panui. It's not panui. Is it panui?
What's a panui?
It's empty. It's empty. The halal, the empty space is empty. It can't be empty. Hashem is everything. Hashem is the infiniteness.
Empty?
Halal, this chamber.
It's not empty, but it's not full. Or it is full.
Oh,
It's a beinozi.
so what do you say?
It's nothing.
So this klal, this inyan, for somebody to get up and say, I've academically figured out the halal hapanui, that would be just foolish. So this is of the greatest mysteries of Kabbalah, of understanding the halal hapanui, and a lot of it is not understanding like I figured it out. It's I sensitize myself to the secrets and the code that the Mekubalim and the great Chassidic masters and the Vilna Gaon and the Ramchal and the great tzaddikim of all the generations were trying to hint to me that what's really going on. But I'm able to understand that there's great secrets here. There's great secrets here. And I know enough to say that I don't fully know how to fully understand the halal hapanui. And I move forward with a certain awareness that there's great secrets here. And I have this almost in the back of my consciousness. I know there's great secrets here that are beyond the finite understanding, and therefore I'm wise enough to know how far my finite mind can go, which makes you wise. I'm wise enough to know. That's why one of the most beautiful points, and the Rosh Yeshiva makes beautiful points all the time, one of the most beautiful points is that when he speaks about Purim, Purim is such a non-Jewish day because Jews are all about thinking. So why do you have one day where the mitzvah is to go ad de lo yada, to go beyond? Like, that's so not Jewish. We're all about thinking and using our brains. Yeah, there has to be one day that realizing that there's this place of the halal hapanui and all the greatest secrets and mysteries. It's intellectual to know there has to be a day where I just open up to the beyondness. That I'm not figuring out Hashem through logical systems anymore. You don't sit down with somebody on Purim and say, I'd like to bring you to a discovery seminar. Let's intellectually figure this whole thing. He's like, bro, I'm there, bro. You're just in it. It's intellectual to have a day that there has to be something beyond the intellect. That's the great secret of Purim. We should be zoicha, my dear friends. We're going to finish the klalim tomorrow, and then we're going to be going back into the Torah, using all of these chai klalim, mamish going be'ian mamish, thinking, meditating, using the wisdom of Rebbe Nachman to guide us to living better lives, to living deeper lives, to being better friends, husbands, sons, fathers, grandchildren, members of our community, members of society, members of humanity. We should be zoicha mamish to take the eitzas of Rebbe Nachman, to take the chai klalim, to live, to have chiyas with these klalim. We should be zoicha mamish that the ore of the tzaddik, that ore of toiv, viraki toiv, the goodness and the blessing and the tikkun hayesod and the shoivim and the tshuva banim shoivavim, that we should all return once and for all to our neshama, to Hashem. We should be Zoicha Mamish, to the ingathering of all the exiles. We should be Zoicha Mamish, to the Tikka B'Shofar Gadol, the great shofar blast of Mashiach, the Binyan Beis HaMikdash b'mhirav yameinu. Amen. Oh ya washreinu matoim rabbeinu manayim goraleinu. Oh ya washreinu matoim rabbeinu. Oh manayim goraleinu. Ya la 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 ya ya la 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 ba da dum ba da dum ba da la ya la 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 la. Shaynu mataynu manayim gora ay shaynu mataynu ay manayim gora leinu Shachris.